The lawyer for a teenager who was sentenced to home detention for killing a 15-year-old cyclist in a hit-and-run accident claims her client is now the target of death threats. Rouxle Le Roux was drinking and smoking cannabis and speeding before she hit Nathan Kratzkov on Auckland's North Shore in May this year. Last week she was sentenced to home detention, 250 hours of community work, and was disqualified from driving for 2.5 years. Now, the sentence has caused a public outcry, with more than 100,000 people signing online a petition there to ask for the sentence to be appealed. Belinda Sellars QC is Le Roux' lawyer. I asked her if home D and community service is what a life is worth these days.
Well, it's not so much what is a life worth, it's what actually happened here, and it was an accident.
Pure and simple, in your view?
Well, certainly my client made some very bad decisions, and, you know, it wasn't blameless by any means. She pleaded guilty at a very early opportunity to dangerous driving causing death. But equally, what happened was she was a young woman in a car with two other young men. She had had some alcohol and some cannabis earlier in the night. She was a learner driver. Those two things are very much not in her favour. She took a wrong turning off the motorway, and then she went too fast for an intersection. She was going 11 k's too fast.
Yeah, so she was speeding. She had consumed alcohol when, for her age, there's zero tolerance for behind the wheel.
Absolutely.
Learner driver's licence, as you say. And she didn't immediately take responsibility for her actions. In fact, she just went home. Well,
not quite, because, well, first of all, she was passing on a green light. So the victim was actually crossing on a controlled intersection, and it was red for pedestrians. She didn't see him and she hit him, and immediately she slowed down. But the boys in the car, the owner of the car, they said, no, you can't stop here, hurry up. And she continued on, and then it got too much for her because she thought she had hit something, and she pulled over. And after that, she was basically a mess, and they took over the driving while she was in the back of the car.
But obviously information in the public domain is that she went home eventually. Her mother didn't say, let's go to the police station now. Her mother says, go to bed, have a rest. They take the car to the panel beaters the next day before they turn up at the police station to explain what's happened. That does not, in a lot of people's minds, scream remorse.
Well, I think it's important here to realise that she was actually not functioning very well at all at this point. She had a reaction, and she was basically following what other people were telling her to do. When she did get to the station, she was completely open with the police. And whilst the person they went to see was a panel beater, it was actually a friend of the family who they were looking for some advice from.
Still, advice about fixing the car. Does she understand
about everything in general, really. That was just a very small part of it.
Does she understand how grotesque some of her social media posts may seem to Nathan's parents? The post of her in the orange prison suit with the garish face paint and the tag, hide your children, the video of her outside Mount Eden jail, the joking about no licence. Does she understand how grotesque that must be for the parents of Nathan?
She does now, and I think it's important that the Halloween post, at the time, she wasn't thinking, and she certainly wasn't thinking about this. She's very clear about that. The other posts, she's actually somebody who's had come out of a very troubled relationship, and being outside Mount Eden prison had absolutely nothing to do with this case. It's not somewhere that she would ever be sent as a woman anyway.
It's about the way it looks, though, isn't it? It's about perception. And the perception is that she, well, at no point seems to understand or appreciate the seriousness of what she has done.
Well, I think that's where the information before the judge, I mean, it's one thing for us to look at what somebody posts, and particularly we're talking about a young person, and interpret it in a certain way. It's another thing to actually hear the person and understand what's going on in their head, and have them speak to you face to face.
So do you truly believe she's remorseful?
Absolutely.
So do you think she has got lucky with sentencing, or do you think that someone from a different family background would have got the same kind of sentence that she did?
She does not come from a privileged background at all. That's one of the things that's been posted that is completely wrong. She comes from a troubled background, and that was referred to by the judge. So this is not a story about race or about privilege at all. It's about when you measure her actual culpability, her guilt of what occurred that night, when you compare it to other cases that are similar, and when you look at her situation and what's going to help not only her but society in general, it's the right result.
So what's she doing at the moment? She sitting home watching Netflix and on social media and just having all access to everything that she would normally inside the house?
On Saturday night there were people outside the house threatening to kill her. She's been receiving death threats by social media, so she's not at home relaxing.
So were the police called to that incident?
They were.
And what's happened as a consequence?
I believe that nobody's been arrested, but that there might have been trespass notices issued.
Okay, so as you'll be aware, there's a petition out there, more than 100,000 people now saying that she should be sent to jail rather than the sentence that she's got. It now appears that the file's going to be reconsidered. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's perfectly proper that it has been sent in a situation like this for Crown Law to consider, but one of the concerns about what's been on social media is so much of it is ill-informed. That's why we have a justice system that's part of a civilised society, that somebody can take a look at this with all of the facts and impartially consider it.
So do people just need to butt out and leave it to the judge then?
Absolutely.
That is Belinda Sellars QC, and she's the lawyer for Rouxle Le Roux. The Crown says it is considering an appeal in that case against the sentence. This afternoon, the court made available Judge Nicola Mather's sentencing notes in this case. A couple of important points there. The judge says that she has given particular care in considering Le Roux's childhood, her troubled childhood. She notes that Le Roux had various mental disorders requiring treatment, and that very shortly after the event she was hospitalised, and that is she is responding positively for treatment and is engaged with community drug and alcohol services. She also says the judge accepts Le Roux's remorse as genuine, and as well as home detention and community service, she has imposed judicial monitoring, which means that Le Roux will be monitored not only by probation services but also the judge herself, and that Le Roux will have to go back before the court and the judge will track her progress too. So those were from the District Court Judge's notes, Nicola Mather's, and they're available online if anyone wants to read the whole 8 pages, I think it is, with the reasons for that particular sentence.